And I think there is so much advice out there that really keeps us small and stuck. Like the comment, for example, you have to have 10,000 followers before you can sell on LinkedIn. No, you don't. You have to start. That's what you need to do, right? But as soon as you start and as soon as you start building your brand, opportunities will come to you.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Value Whispering podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, business coach, value whisperer, and advocate for introverted female experts who want to build a business that feels natural, authentic, and true to them. Each week, we explore what it really takes to create a quietly impactful business, one that thrives through meaningful marketing, value-driven sales, and self-leadership. So if you are ready to attract your dream clients, sell with confidence, and create lasting success on your own terms, you're in the right place. Today, we are diving into all things LinkedIn. If you've ever questioned what to post on LinkedIn, whether short or long posts are best, what images to use, how to respond to comments, how to reach out to new interesting people, if AI could or should support your LinkedIn activities, or if you've ever felt hesitant before hitting post, you are going to love today's discussion with LinkedIn strategist Josephine Wanner, because we cover all of this and so much more. It's a complete LinkedIn masterclass. You don't want to miss anything, so be sure to have your notepad handy. But before we dive into that, I have something special for you today, because next week it is my 250th episode of the show. I don't quite know how we've made it here. It has been a whirlwind and I've loved every single episode. And I have some special resources that I'm going to be sharing with you next week. So we have a very special episode, something I've never done on the podcast before. I can't wait to reveal that for you next Wednesday. Also, we will have from Monday a brand new download for you, and it's a collection of episodes of the show under themes. So each week you can listen to a theme from the show, such as visibility confidence, how to set and achieve your goals, how to have value-driven sales conversations, so much. There are several different playlists you can choose from and turn your time cleaning the house, driving the kids around, taking the dog for a walk. You can turn this time into powerful business and personal development time by listening to the playlists, one each day, and they turn into a real course in authentic business growth. So I hope you will dive in and enjoy one or more of those playlists. I've been listening back to them myself, and I'm just always so amazed and grateful at just how much value every single one of my guests has shared on the show. And it has been so hard to narrow down just 7 under each playlist, but I've been really, really picky with the ones I've chosen, and I've tried to really round out every topic for you. So do go and grab yourself a copy of that. It's going to be completely free, of course. And next Wednesday, to celebrate the 250th episode, I'm having a special masterclass to share everything I've learned so far about podcasts. So how to launch a podcast, how to keep it going, how to pitch to a show. I've had some great pitches from guests who have appeared on the podcast, and I've had a lot of really bad ones. So I'll be sharing those insights with you, what to do, what not to do to get on a podcast, and how to be a memorable guest. And I'll be opening the floor to your questions. So it's going to be a live interactive masterclass with me next Wednesday, 2:00 European time. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that. So lots happening next week. From Monday, if you go to melittacampbell.com/250, then you will be able to access all of those resources, or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm at Melitta with 2 T's, and follow me there, and I'll be posting all about all the resources you can get next week. So I am really looking forward to those celebrations. I hope you will join us. Meantime, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to Josephine. So welcome, Josephine. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Melitta. I'm super happy to be here too.
Yeah, and we're going to talk all about LinkedIn today. And I know So many people in the audience have big questions about LinkedIn. So I've got questions about how to optimize your profile, what to do if you're scared to post, what is the perfect post, how do you comment, how do you find people, how to use AI. We're going to dive into all of it. Brace yourself, Josephine. There's a lot of
Sounds good.
questions.
Sounds good.
But before we dive in, I'd love it if you could share with the audience a little bit of your story. How did you get to do what you do today?
So, like many of us, I was in corporate for almost 20 years until I had a very real and very scary wake-up call. And that made me realize that I had pursued a career that I didn't really want to have in the first place. And it actually really threw me. And it felt at that moment as if I don't get out of here now, I might never get out. So I did what I wouldn't, I wouldn't advise anyone to do, but I handed in my resignation. I felt that I have to get out of here. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was scared, I was lost, I was angry, everything at once. And one thing led to the other. And that brought me to coaching because I was still like in the employee mindset. I was still looking for jobs. And I thought that a coaching degree could always be good to have in the backpack. That won't hurt, right? And when I did my coaching degree, I realized that this is so brilliant when it's done in the right way. And that was actually what brought me to think in terms of having a business in the first place. So when I quit, that wasn't the first thought I had, but it is actually what it has led me to it. And I haven't regretted it. It's been hard. It's been like a roller coaster, and you know that too, how that is, Melitta, but it's so worth it, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I just started my business because I loved my job, but I couldn't do it part time. So I thought,
Mm.
"Right, I'll take this time to spend with my family and I'll just do a little bit on the side to keep my hand in. And then I'll go back to the office 2 years later. And yeah, 17 years later, I'm still out here.
Exactly. And I think that is right, the freedom we have. I also have two kids. And the funny thing was when I quit my job, my youngest one, he was really angry because here in Switzerland, they get to visit us at work one day. And now he was like, I can't visit you at the bank. So he was really upset in the beginning. But now I get to show them that everything is possible. And I get to build an amazing business that really gives us fantastic opportunities. And I think that really drives me too. And I'm from Sweden originally, and I live in Switzerland. So for me, it was important that I can be somewhere where I can just travel back to my family in Sweden, or I can work from anywhere in the whole world. And there weren't that many options then. And at the bank, I couldn't even take my laptop over the border. So those restrictions made me realize that I want something else, totally something different.
Yeah, and having built my business alongside my family, I love how it's really inspired my kids as well, that they
Mm.
are so entrepreneurial. They're always out there learning and growing, and we don't know what our kids are going to do in the future, what that world's going to be like, but entrepreneurial skills, being able to create something, have a vision, go for it, make connections, communicate, collaborate. These are all skills that are going to be really key in the future, I think. So I think it's a real gift that we're able to give our kids.
I absolutely agree.
So at what point did you decide, okay, I'm a coach, this is great, and then jump into LinkedIn? How did that happen?
Well, like so many others, I started as a life coach. I also thought that I should help corporate women who were lost, who were stuck, like I had been back then before I took the leap. So that was the thought I had, that these are the people I have to help. And I then had a multi-day event, and I sat there at this event and I was like, so, well, if you have any questions, we have a Q&A tomorrow. And when no one showed up to the Q&A, I was like, no wonder no one shows up because I didn't even want to be here in the first place. I didn't have the patience to serve these women. And of course, they sensed that. So I told my business manager back then, I said, this is not working because I don't want to sell to these people. And if you don't want to sell to these people, it's very hard to sell, right? So I said, we need to take a step back and we need to figure out what it is that I want to do. What do I want to build my business on? So that's what we did. And I think we actually paused it for like from May to August until I relaunched a totally new program that I call the Empowered Entrepreneur Program. What I do today in a different capacity is a little bit similar to what I did back then, but I created a program that helped other entrepreneurs to build a scalable online program. And that was totally different. The vibe that I had, the energy that I had. And I immediately enrolled 7 clients into that program the first time I launched it. So that felt so, I am on track. This is the right way. And I launched it again. And we got a new bunch of clients coming in. They were all over, like a person who did knitting, a yoga teacher, or she was a Pilates teacher, a leadership coach. So they were like all over the place because I hadn't niched down, right? I launched it again. And then I was hit by a very scary wake-up call. I had a malignant tumor detected in December 2021 that was luckily discovered on time, removed on time. But during that time after the surgery and me getting healthy, I started doubting everything. I doubted the leads coming in. I doubted the results that my clients had gotten. I doubted myself a lot. And that again threw me back on my business journey. So I used the whole of 2021. What I did then also was I finished the certification of my coaching degree. So what I did throughout the whole 2021 was actually to rebuild my confidence again, to actually realize that this is what I need to be doing. And I connected with certain people. I started also be more active on LinkedIn because before I had also tried to build a brand on Instagram like so many others, because that was where the big, people were who seemed successful. But I find it very hard to connect with someone when they comment with a heart emoji, like what do you respond to that, right? So I started having conversations on LinkedIn, like real conversations, connecting with amazing people all over the world. And I really enjoyed being there, from having been like extremely afraid of LinkedIn too, because in my corporate world, we were not allowed to post, we were not allowed to hashtag the company's name and things like that. So I was really afraid of LinkedIn and what my former colleagues might think. And now I dared to show up there and got real great response. And then people started reaching out to me to say, hey, Josephine, I want you to teach me LinkedIn. And in the beginning, I was a very reluctant LinkedIn teacher. I said, no, you have to go to the gurus. And I even directed them to the gurus. And they said, no, I want to learn from you. And there was one person in particular, a person that I had actually gotten to know during my certification. And she said, I want to learn from you. And I was like, okay, let me backtrack what I'm doing. And then I can take you through that. And then we'll see what happens. And she at the time had a couple hundred connections. So she wasn't big at all on LinkedIn. She had been a former public speaker, had a lot of speaking engagements before COVID happened. But then, of course, everything died down right during COVID. And she was all over the place. She was a multi-passionate entrepreneur. She was also a life coach now. She was a Pilates teacher. She is a travel guide. She has her investment company, like loads of interests. She's a journalist, loads of things. So she was a little bit all over the place. And I told her, Annette, what is it that you want to achieve with LinkedIn? Because we need to have a focus. And she said, I want to get paid public speaking gigs. And I was like, okay, looking at the number of connections she had, and I was like, this is probably not going to work. I didn't tell her that, right? But I was thinking to myself, wonder if this is going to work. But we worked through the framework. And within a few weeks, she had actually gotten 1 paid speaking gig. And within the 8 weeks, she had gotten 3 new paid speaking gigs, which was amazing. So that proved that the framework wasn't only working for me, but it actually worked for more people.
What a brilliant story. And I think that very much echoes my experience as well when I was running communications consultancy. But then it just became too much and I was burning out from that, realized that's not really what I'm passionate about. And then people were saying, well, can you help me grow a business? I was like, no, because I just couldn't see how I could help. And then so many people were asking, and then so, oh, what are you seeing that I'm missing? And then when they explained, it's like, oh, yes, I can really help you with that, because they were struggling to communicate what it was that they did. They were amazing experts, but very often a little bit shy or introverted and didn't know where to start with putting something quite complicated together into a very simple pitch that they could engage people in. So yeah, and it's been the way ever since, which is great. So you mentioned there that you have your framework. Are you able to share what that framework looks like with us?
Absolutely. And also maybe to touch back to what you were saying, because even if we are experts in what we're doing, we all have blind spots of things we don't see. We think we're communicating crystal clear what it is that we're doing, So I think that is also why your support is so essential, to actually identify those blind spots that we can't see ourselves. And if we move into the framework, it's 5 different steps that we go through. And I can quickly go through them too. So the first one is actually content that converts. So that is the first door into how people will actually see you and perceive you, because the intention here is that people see you as an authority, that people see you as the expert that you are, so that they come to you when they have their problem, or they know they have their problem and they want to have the problem solved. And you are the first person that they think of. So content that converts is the first one.
So on
The
that
sec-
point,
yeah.
when we hear about people saying a landing page that converts, a sales page that converts, usually it means that they're selling in that post. Is that what you mean by content
No.
that converts?
No, 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 no. We build it up, right? I don't mean that you have content that goes viral, or content that, you post once and then you get 15 sales. Rather, to build up the whole picture of you, that you are the authority, you are the expert. So building that whole piece, actually cover educational content, inspirational content, like your solution in the content, but also like showcase you as the expert. So those are important to think of when we talk about content that converts. It's a great question. So yeah, so no. So yes or no, but it's like, so we think more in terms of the whole picture, right? We're not talking about pitching content or sales pitches content, but it's more like, I would actually call it more like attraction marketing type of content.
Yeah. Yeah, I really resonate and agree with that approach, because I often get people asking, how can I sell from social media? And my thought is you can't really sell direct from social media, but you build the relationships
Yeah.
that lead to the conversations that lead to sales. And as you say, you can position yourself, you can engage with people, start getting the right people into your audience, like immerse them in your world. Early stage, it's so important because that's effectively where the sales happen. By the time you have a sales conversation, you want that person to be pre-sold,
Yeah.
thinking that you are the right person with the right expertise and the right framework for them. And then it's just a nice conversation about, well, is this the right timing? Do we feel like a good fit? And so sales isn't always what people think of as sales. So I think it's the important part of sales that isn't actually sales, if that makes any sense to anyone listening.
So sales approach and mindset is part of my framework. It's actually my step 5. So if we move into step number 2, it's engagement. That is also where we build this connection with people. I usually split engagement in 3 different types. It's like engaging in your own post, engaging in other people's posts, and then also engaging in the DMs. And when we talk about engaging in the DMs, it's not about cold pitching or sending, hey, I have this offer, or hey, this is my homepage, check it out. That is not the way we're doing it, but it's more like building that mutual trust so that people really want to engage with you. And regarding the engagement in your own content, I see that so often, that people make these amazing posts, other people take the time to comment on their posts, and then it's crickets. They don't even respond to those comments. They don't even say thank you for stopping by. Because also remember that people have actually taken like maybe a fraction of their time, but they actually read through your post and they commented on your post. Then show them, the appreciation for that. Just say thank you so much for coming by and liking my post.
Yeah, because
And
if you don't do that, they will stop commenting, and that's not going to help your ongoing growth of your brand and your LinkedIn profile. But does it affect the algorithm? If people have commented on your post and you really engage in that, what does that do to the algorithm? Does it help grow your profile?
it does. So when you comment on someone else's post, it sends like a signal to LinkedIn that this person is a valuable member of LinkedIn, because they don't only focus on themselves, they actually engage with other people.
Mhm.
What also happens when you comment on other people's posts, which probably some people totally underestimate, is that that person's audience sees you. So when I comment on your post, for example, your audience sees me. So if someone in your audience think like, oh, Melitta is super cool, but she's not the right person for me. And then I pop up there and then they might see me and then think, oh, Josephine, she's amazing. Or the other way around too. So we get to borrow each other's audiences. And I have had clients coming to me and say, hey, I saw you in that person's post. Are you open for a discussion? And it doesn't mean that I pitch in the other person's comment section. Absolutely not. Never pitch yourself. You're a guest in their post, right? But add value. Don't just write great post. Thank you for sharing, but add some value to that post. And that is also when you write your own posts, make it easy for people to add value to your post in the comment section. And if we, connect that back to content that converts, make it easy for people to read the post, understand the post, comment on the post. Don't make it complicated, because if it's complicated, we shut down, right? So that is so important to engage in other people's content, engage in your own content, and in the DMs.
I see that quite often, that people get upset. "Oh, I've got no engagement on my post." And then you look at their post, but there's nothing to engage in. They've given such an in-depth, complete post. Well, what do you say to that?
Yeah.
You've covered it all there, and you haven't asked a question, and you very often given too much information. Posts just seem to be getting longer and longer and longer. And so each post can be broken down into several posts with questions, and then really design them to get more engagement. I'm amazed how many people don't think about that step. How can I make it easy for people to engage in this and start a conversation? Because it's still social media. It has to be social.
Yeah, and I think maybe they want to share a lot. They want to share, and they also hear this advice of give your best away for free and things like that. So they want to pack it all into a post, but you don't have to pack it all into one post. Rather split it up. And if you have a lot of things to say, then maybe starting a newsletter on LinkedIn is the best option for you, which is a great way. And also when you think in terms of if you want to kick off the discussion, you can also, I always do that. I always add 2 to 3 to even 4 comments on my own post to kick off the engagement there too. You can continue if you weren't finished in the caption. You can continue the discussion in the comment section. You can ask additional questions in the comment section, because I think that also gives a sign to the other people, it's okay to post here, and I don't have to be the first person to post here. So like your own post, add a comment on your own post. It actually increases the impressions too, funnily enough, that people see that you have commented on your own post.
Yeah, I heard that advice relatively recently, and I always didn't post on my own post. I thought, well, that just looks like I'm being boastful. But then someone's like, no, you should, because it really helps. It's like, oh, okay.
And if you think in terms of, I actually want to add more value to this, but I don't want to pack, the caption full of that. So you add more value in the comment section. So do that. And one tip that other people do, which I haven't implemented, but that could be something if that ties back to what you said, that don't add all of the information. So let's assume you make a list or a listicle, for example. Make 5 spots, and then you can say, so what did I miss? Or what do you want to add, for example? People love to add things. So you could always do that type of content too.
Yeah, great tips. Thank you. Sorry, I interrupted you about to say something amazing about the algorithm.
Yeah, so the algorithm on LinkedIn is different compared to Instagram or Facebook or even YouTube or TikTok for that matter. It's based on the connections you have. It's based on your connections. So when you post something, it's pushed out to your connections. On Facebook and Instagram, it's based on your interests. So when you have watched a video a little bit too long, like I watch wedding dances, for example, a little bit too long. So my feed is full of like happy couples dancing, even though I'm like not in the age of getting married, rather the opposite, right? So use that way of the algorithm too. So when you, for example, send a DM to people, there is a higher probability that your post is shown to your audience. That could be a way to then actually do that. And then also when you comment on other people's posts, then they usually tend to comment back on your post. And if we then move into step number 3, which is connections, is that to make sure that you build the connections that are other commenters, other people that are active on the platform, other people that you find their content is interesting or they are inspiring, or it might be an author, for example, from a book that you've read and you see in their comment section that they have loads of interesting people in the comment section too. Those are the people that you should connect with. And also then think in terms of, do people want to connect with me, right? You should also have that kind of vibe too, that people want to connect with you too. So when you connect with people or build your connections, don't think in terms of, collecting connections like Pokemon cards or adding tens of thousands of connections. And by the way, you don't need 10,000 connections before you can actually sell on LinkedIn. That's not true. I had 4,000 connections when I started to teach about LinkedIn. And now I have something around 7,000. So you absolutely don't have to have like 10K connections to be successful on LinkedIn. But you need to be intentional about the connections that you build.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I
Mm-hmm.
suspect we're going to come to some of this again as we move through the next framework. So you've talked about content that converts, engaging, and what's the third thing?
Connections. Connections was
Ah,
the third thing. And the fourth thing is, which shouldn't come as a surprise, it's the optimized profile to like showcase what it is that you're doing. And many people think they have an optimized profile, but if you're honest to yourself and you Google your name, and what usually comes at top of your Google research is actually your LinkedIn profile. And when you click on that, are people going to be impressed with what they're seeing? Are they going to know exactly what it is that you're doing? Or does your profile send a totally different picture? So that is also so important to remember, that our profile should be a little bit like a landing page. You mentioned landing page before. Does it convert? When people get to your profile, do they want to connect with you? Is it friendly? Is it inviting? Does your banner, for example, have a clear call to action? Not just, your name or a landscape picture, which many people have, but use that as the resource that it actually is to guide people to an action that you want to take. I have, for example, currently I have a freebie that's on my landing page. If I'm hosting a masterclass, I change my banner to promote my masterclass. So use that. Other things to think of is the headline. So when you comment on other people's stuff, what they see is your face, your picture, and they see your headline. So don't waste those important first 5, 6 words, but really use them strategically. And I have a pink background on my profile picture, not because I love pink, but because from a strategic perspective, because when I comment on other people's comments, they see my pink background. So use that very strategically. And when we move down to the about section, for example, only 3 or 4% click the see more. And I think it's because usually they are so boring. It's like, hey, welcome to my LinkedIn profile. Well, we already knew we were on your LinkedIn profile. Use that to something different. Make them interested in wanting to click see more, but also remember it is about you, right? So write in terms of, why are you so passionate about what it is that you're doing? How do you help people? Can you add like a short sentence of a testimonial, for example? You can't do any links, unfortunately, or pictures or anything in the about section, but write it a little bit more storytelling and not sell, but think in terms of connect, engage, and things like that.
yeah, exactly. I think your about section is a great way to attract the right people, but also repel those people that just aren't relevant. So that
Mm-hmm.
the more connections you have that are relevant to you, then that's going to boost your engagement and everything else and lead to better relationships, are going to lead to sales. So everything all links up together. But yeah, having that optimized profile is so important. So thank you for being so thorough in that little mini checklist, because I think a lot of people, they just don't know where to start with that.
Yeah.
And they've been told in the past, perhaps from their corporate career, make it a CV and talk about you. And then they launch into all their certifications that they have in their first sentence. And that's, snooze fest. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I love that advice. Thank you.
And then we have the last step, which I think you love. It's sales mindset and approach, actually, because we're not cold pitching, but what we're doing is we're reframing the whole sales mindset, that sales is actually a service. We're helping someone to solve their problem. And we do need a sales strategy. For example, I love launching. I love hosting masterclasses where I invite people to a masterclass, and then they get to see me in action, and then they can decide for themselves if they want to join my programs or not, right? And at the same time, I've given lots of value. So you need to have like a clear sales strategy, I think, because otherwise you might get stuck in this little bit like friend zone and just back and forth in the DMs. But I also don't want you to think in terms of, someone accepts your connection request and the first thing you do is send them a link to, this is what I do, this is how I can help you. Because you don't know then yet if they even have the problem that you want to solve, or they might even not be aware of the problem, or they might already work with someone else on work, like solving that problem. So thinking in terms of having a solid sales strategy. And that is also why the steps 1 to 4 are so important. And you mentioned that, Melitta. You said it's so that people are already converted before we actually have that sales conversation. I think that is the most important piece. And also when we talk about attracting or repelling the wrong one. So you don't sit on those calls where people are like, can I pick your brain? No, you can't, right? It's like, so we have those discussions and you get less of those pick your brain call requests actually, because people already see you as an authority and as an expert in what you're doing.
What a brilliant framework. I know you've got a checklist based on
Mm-hmm.
that framework that people can download. So we'll show them in a little bit where they can get their hands on that. But I have a few other questions. So I know from my community, one of the big fears they have is just posting in the first place, putting out a post because they have all this, who am I to say this? What if people disagree? What if people hate what I say and I get nasty comments? What if I don't say the right thing? There are so many doubts and fears
Mm.
around this that holds people back. Do you have any advice for anyone listening who may be in that camp right now?
Yeah, because I can totally relate where they are coming from. I was there too. I didn't even have a profile picture when I quit my job. I didn't even accept connection requests unless I had met them in real life. So I totally understand where that fear comes from. What I have also heard from others is that they think that they have to be different on LinkedIn compared to on Instagram, that LinkedIn seems more professional, seems as if everyone else is much more polished than they might feel. So I totally understand how that feeling feels. And the thing is, we just have to start, right? We will have people who disagree with us. We will have people that think that we are doing something wrong or we have said something wrong. But I think that the trolls that we're having are way less on LinkedIn than what I have experienced on other platforms. And you are the master of your feed. You can block. I have unfollowed people because I was a little bit like witch hunted in, I engaged in someone else's content and there were two men that almost kind of like witch hunted me in that. And I was like, I didn't sign up for this, right? So I unfollowed that person. You can block people. You decide what you want to do. But I think we have to get over that hurdle and just start posting. And my very, very, very first post ever on Instagram was a quote. And I remember I posted it on a Friday afternoon, which I wouldn't advise you to do if you're afraid of trolls. And I mean, back then it was my family and friends that were connected with me on Instagram. No one else would see it. But just getting over that fear to actually start posting. And what we can often do then is maybe to just do an introductory post of ourselves to say, hey, this is me. This is what I like doing. Who are you? Who am I connected with? And that I actually do that type of post maybe once every 6 months. And it always gets loads of engagement because people want to read about you. But don't forget then to actually add a question. So what do you want to share about yourself? Because again, it's not about us or it's not about me. It's actually about, connecting with the other people.
Yeah, I love that. And we were on the podcast recently talking with an artist called Karen Turner, and I asked her, like, how often have you had people say anything negative on your posts? Because we were talking a little bit about how she became visible, and she said once. And
Yeah.
for me, I don't think I've ever had that. I've only had people say thank you, and I've even had people contact me and say, I found your content so helpful. It got me
Yeah.
over this or whatever, which is wonderful. But then they've offered me services and sent gifts. And one person sent me a book in the post and she said, oh, I really wanted to say thank you. I know you love books. And I think once you start getting those thank yous, then it helps build that confidence a little bit more as well. And the beautiful thing is, if you're just starting out, as you said earlier, no one's looking. You
No,
don't
no,
have a following, so it doesn't matter.
no.
And people that are there are typically people you know well,
Yeah.
so they're not going to say anything nasty. So yeah.
No. And maybe also remember that no one who's ahead of you would ever say anything nasty because they have gone through exact the same journey. But to remember that the only people that kick and are nasty are the ones that are behind you. So once I had made a carousel, I very seldom do carousels because I think they take a lot of effort. But I had done one and I had this person saying that he thought that that was a completely useless carousel. So I commented back and then I said, well, thank you for the feedback. So I will head over to your profile to see how it should be done in that case. He was, first of all, he was a confidence coach. So that was a little bit weird, right? So why do you lash out on someone else for something like that? If you don't like it, then just leave it be, right? And he hadn't posted anything, right? So I think it's important to remember that those people who might say something nasty or criticize what it is that we're doing, and it was his right to say that he thought the carousel was useless. It was about engagement and that you shouldn't care too much about the algorithm and impressions and things like that. But it's also that if he doesn't do it, it's a little bit like Brené Brown says, like if they are not in the arena with you, their opinion don't really count, actually.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love that quote. And I had a mentor, and his favorite phrase was never listen to anyone who doesn't already drive your dream car.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, you did exactly. What am I going to learn from listening to people who are behind me? And I did have one person who was always a little bit negative, and it used to really impact me. And then I thought, hold on a minute. I've been building my business for the last 10 years. She's been talking about building a business for the last 10 years and she's done nothing. So
Yeah.
why am I even listening to this person? And then that helped.
And I had that person when I did my very, very, very first online course once, because I think what they also do is they kind of, these negative voices, they confirm our inner fears, right? They confirm what we think that others might think. And then we have one person who confirms that fear. And I remember when I did my very, very first online course, and I recorded it on Zoom, I think, and I cut the videos, but it was during COVID, so the family was home, so I moved rooms, so I had different backgrounds in every video. And I had, I think, 57 people joining, and there was one person who complained about, the backdrop and the quality of the microphone and things like that. And she then told me that she thinks that if I want to build a business out of this and be successful, then I have to do, change the backdrop and things like that. And first I was like, oh, that really threw me back, first of all, because it confirmed my fears, because I was also thinking this doesn't look professional enough, right? And I had a great coach at the time, and she said, so would you go back to all the other 56 people and ask for their opinion? And I was like, no, I wouldn't, right? So, and then I joined a business coach, and she had and she was a multimillionaire business coach, and she had all her recordings inside of her portal were like voice recordings. There were no videos at all. And I was like, if she can build a multi-million-dollar business out of this, then I can have different backdrops of my recordings. And exactly like you said, Melitta, that person, she was not in the arena. She wasn't building an online business, right? So I actually blocked that person because I was like, I don't need that type of energy. I'm focusing on the ones who actually give me energy instead.
Yeah, exactly. She was never going to become a dream client. So,
Oh,
yeah.
no, absolutely not. No.
And it's always, we were talking earlier about it's all about the quality, not the quantity. And I think, if the quality of your message and content is there, if everything has intention and heart, then that's all you need. It doesn't really matter about your backdrop at all. Yeah, try not to have it with like your bedroom with dirty laundry in the background, obviously. But if it's clean and tidy, then, I think anything
Exactly.
goes. Yeah. And I think if your audience is similar to mine, they're women who are not just building a business, but they're managing lots of different things. So I think if they see us doing that and they still
Mm.
get value, then I think that helps signal to them that it's possible. You don't have to have everything super perfect. Often I feel if I mess up a little bit, it's actually a service to my clients because it shows them it doesn't have to be perfect. It still works.
Yeah. I share about my mistakes all the time because I think it's important. I'm not perfect, things happen all the time. So I think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I have a question. Well, it's a bit of a fun one. What is the craziest advice? And there's probably more than one because I've heard a few. So we can perhaps get all the craziest advice we've ever heard about what it takes to succeed on LinkedIn. Um, I'll start with
Mhm.
one that you mentioned, which I hadn't heard, but before we came live, that there are some gurus out there that say you have to comment on 50 to 100 posts every single day. Like,
Yeah.
when? When are you going to do that?
Yeah, exactly. They say 50 to 100 comments. You can actually track your comments in the analytics. You can actually see how many comments you do. Those analytics might not be updated immediately, so I don't think they are like completely accurate. So that probably includes if you would add 10 comments on your own post, but it's like No, you don't have time or energy to comment on 50, especially if you're starting out. You wouldn't even know, where do I even comment like 50 to 100 comments per day. It doesn't make any sense, right? And maybe say what they need to do instead. It's like, no, choose your kind of the people that you find inspiring, choose your supporters, and then you comment on 5 to 10 posts or 5 to 10 creators. And that's good to start with. When people told me in the beginning that I see you everywhere, when I wasn't teaching LinkedIn, I was probably commenting on, a little bit here and a little bit there, but I added value in my comments. It's not about the number of comments that you do. It's about adding value to the comments that you do. Rather do 10 to 20 valuable comments instead.
Yeah, I've had the same experience where I don't post that much on LinkedIn. Maybe if I'm having a good week, 3 or 4 times, but often I
Mhm.
forget. And I comment maybe 5 or 10 a day, but not really more than that. And I have the same thing. Yeah, I see you everywhere. But I
Yeah.
think it's because I'm very choosy with where I put my comments and that only put comments where I can really add value, or it's a bit more strategic. And then people remember that you commented because you said something worthwhile. And I think that's
Yeah.
the key, as you say, you're not everywhere, but people remember you. I think understanding that, particularly for, my audience, they're largely introverted. And for us, it's hard to show up without meaning and purpose. So
Yeah.
if well, I only have to put a handful of comments that add value in some way, I think that's a brilliant strategy for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there is so much advice out there that really keeps us small and stuck. Like the comment, for example, you have to have 10,000 followers before you can sell on LinkedIn. No, you don't. You have to start. That's what you need to do, right? But as soon as you start and as soon as you start building your brand, opportunities will come to you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you get sales and new clients and more revenue, but you will get invited to speak on like podcasts. Like you and I, we connected on LinkedIn. We met at an event first and then we connected on LinkedIn. But it's so important to see those other opportunities that are out there. I met a friend that I had met on LinkedIn in Phoenix last year. We connected on LinkedIn and then we built a relationship. And then when I flew over, we actually met in real life. Those are amazing opportunities that is so much bigger than just getting another client, I think. So it's also important to remember that it's not about those 10,000, even though having a larger audience is good when it's an engaged audience. Having 10,000 followers that don't do anything doesn't help you. So rather have a smaller audience and an engaged audience.
Yeah.
Or, the advice to send like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 connection requests per day. Don't do that either. You want to build the right audience. So rather focus on, I think you said before, like 5 connection requests, 5 comments, 5 posts? No. What
No,
was the other
one
one?
post, 5 comments, 5 connection requests, and 5 messages. And that's what I
Exactly.
do.
Yeah.
And then I can do it with a cup of coffee. It takes me 20 minutes. And I know I've done enough to maintain a good presence on LinkedIn without being overwhelmed because, yeah, I don't have time to comment on 100 posts.
Yeah.
It takes so long. If you're going to do it properly, of course. If you're just
Yeah.
saying, yeah, great, thanks, that doesn't take you long at all. So from the challenge that I run, the Magnetic Messages Challenge, I've heard so much crazy advice about what the best way to post on social media is. So some people were told never do more than one sentence. I'm like, how can you really add any value with just one sentence? Other
Like a very
people,
long sentence.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Other people are told write like a big block of text and put everything in it, like you said earlier. Put all your best stuff out there, but without proper formatting and really thinking things through and having a nice structure, it becomes unreadable.
Yeah.
Then someone else was told, don't even put anything in the comments, only ever put a picture and put your message in the picture. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, what? There were just so many crazy things. Is there like an optimal way to structure a LinkedIn post to add value and get engagement?
So I think there are like 7 different types of content that you can create on LinkedIn. So there are different ways, and I think you should actually try to use more than one. For example, just a text post. I always use a picture because it creates a scroll stopper. First of all, I was so afraid of posting selfies. Now I post them because I can, right? Like people see, oh, Melitta is here. Oh, I want to read what she has to say today. If you just do a text only post, it works for the big creators, but we are not there yet, right? So I would say add a picture to it. I think that is important. When it comes to the caption or the text itself, make it easy to read. Yes, the hook or like the first line is important. Don't say like post 25 of 65 or things like that. Then you've lost that first super important line. And formatting is important. I actually use more white space, and one person told me he finds it very difficult to read, and I find it easy to read. It's like it's your post, you decide, but rather add a little bit more white space. Try to shorten it. Sometimes I know I write a little bit too long, but then I want to get that message over. So do what works for you, but in terms of, is this what my audience would want? If your audience are watching videos, then I'm sorry to say it, but you have to add videos, right? And also because videos is creating so much know, like, and trust faster than what a post just does, right? So mix it up a little bit with videos, but again, keep them short. And if you do a video, always with the subtitles so that people can read it when they are on the tram or in the train or whatever with the headset on, or not with the headset on, and then add a caption to that video post too, so that people can, like me, I don't watch videos, for example, but I want to read the caption so that I can still add a valuable comment to it. So they're like, keep it short, add captions, add value. I also don't really see how you can add any value with just a one sentence, and unless you've already built a personal brand and everyone knows who you are and what you stand for, then maybe it would work. I don't know. I see a lot of people, especially men, actually using this type of Twitter post. So they have like the sentence on the picture and then they have a caption. Try that. See what works for you. Make it easy. Don't make it complicated, right? What we also see when you start using a newsletter, for example, is that especially in the beginning, if you just started your newsletter, then reach out to those people. That can be pretty fast sales, actually, if you reach out to them with a personal message, say, thank you so much for subscribing to my newsletter. Is there anything in particular you would love me to write? Because the thing about those newsletters is also that they pop up in their inbox, right? So you don't have access to the emails, but LinkedIn does. So when someone subscribes to a newsletter, they get that in their inbox too. So use them a little bit strategically. I use 3 videos, not so often, but I should use more videos. Caption post with a picture, usually of myself, sometimes with a carousel or another infographic is also big currently, and newsletters. And live is another thing that you can really use to increase your engagement.
Yeah, amazing advice. And I agree. When you mix it up, one, you start to learn what works, your content stays interesting, and it's good to do these longer value posts, yes. But then if you try to do that every day, you're exhausted in no time. You can break that down into short tips and carousels, and you can mix it up and have fun. And I always think if it's fun for you to create, then it's fun for other people to read. If it feels like a chore, then no one's going to read it.
And I think the energy that you put when you write it, or the energy that you put when you send a DM, they're immediately going to sense that, right? Immediately. So if you think that I'm going to sell to this person, they are going to feel that. If you think that, oh, I just want to connect with this person, they will feel that too.
Yeah, brilliant. One last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up, because we've covered, I know, so much, but is AI. Is there a way that we can use AI for LinkedIn that helps us to maintain our presence, but without diluting our expertise and our message? Because I think, you can see these days posts that have been written by AI, comments that have been written by AI, they sound very AI. So
yes, I would say stay away from comments AI, because what you need to remember is that when you write a comment on someone else's post, you actually learn about that person. You learn how they write. You connect with them in a totally different way. I had someone reaching out to me saying, oh, I see you have a lot of engagement on your posts. Do you want a VA to do the comments for you? And I was like, no, because then I would lose touch with my audience. So use the comment more to see what's in the market, to use that little bit like market research to connect with the people. And also some big creators actually block the people that use AI. And as you say, you see it immediately and it's just, annoying, right? So don't use any AI for commenting ever, or be in engagement pods. That actually also makes it worse for you because you don't know, does my content land? Because you still get hundreds of likes and comments because you were in an engagement pod where you said, oh, we're all going to comment and like each other's posts now, so we get loads of impressions, but you don't know, do they really like what I'm writing? So stay away from those engagement pods. But absolutely use AI for your content creation. I think of AI more in terms of a brilliant copywriter, and all copywriters are probably going to kill me now that I say this, but use AI to come up with ideas. You know, when I'm out walking, I get these ideas, and then I use ChatGPT and I say, can you please help me restructure this in an easy to read post? And then he or she does that. And it uses words that you wouldn't use. So reread what you've written, rewrite some words and make it sound like you. Because if people would then, connect with you and engage in your content, and then all of a sudden they meet up with you and it's a totally different person. So all the work that you have built up there is for nothing because they don't feel connected to you. So I think I probably use the word important like so many times here, but it is important to sound like you, be like you, but use AI as a tool. We all do that. Don't make it harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, I do the same. I very often like, okay, I want to say this. These are the key points. And I've worked with an AI expert to create a customized chat GPT, which I have given to my clients now as well, so that they have their own social media assistant, which learns everything
Yeah.
about them, their voice, their ideal clients, their struggles, their angle on things. And then it learns that so it can give amazing advice. And as you say, it doesn't always put it quite as I'd want it, but it's pretty close. So it's
Yeah.
still my content. But then instead
Yeah.
of me agonizing over the perfect structure and things, I get AI to help me with that bit as well. Sometimes I just have it and it flows, but yeah, just saves so much time.
Exactly. It saves a lot of things. Or you can't find the right word. And sometimes we think more complicated, but it has to be easy for people to read. And I think that for me as a non-native speaker is actually a little bit easier because my language isn't that complicated. And sometimes he uses words that I'm like, no, I don't speak like that. I wouldn't use that type of word. I don't even know what it means. So please use a different word. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the Hemingway app as well, which is really
Hmm.
handy because that
Hmm.
it really highlights where you've made things too complicated and where you can shorten things. So that can be really helpful as well.
Yeah. Grammarly is also a huge help. And I was a very late Grammarly user. And I was like, oh my God, I've had so many mistakes in my comments and in everything that I write before. But adding Grammarly as an extension is super helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Josephine. You've shared so much. It's been a complete masterclass. But is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think, okay, if someone's really looking to grow their audience on LinkedIn, start attracting more of those right clients into their world, is there anything else that you feel they need to know that we haven't perhaps talked about yet?
Yeah, I think maybe why even LinkedIn? I think we didn't cover that. You have over 1 billion users on LinkedIn. And sometimes people come to me and say, yeah, but my ideal clients aren't LinkedIn, or my ideal clients wouldn't engage on LinkedIn. And maybe no, maybe they are what I call observers. Other people call them lurkers. Let's assume you're a relationship coach, for example, or a financial coach. Then yes, your people wouldn't say, I have trouble in my marriage, or I don't know how to invest and things like that. But that is also why the content then needs to speak to their needs so
Mm.
that they do reach out to you when you need that. And also that they are on LinkedIn. With 1 billion users, I can promise you that they are on LinkedIn, but you might not see them. And that is also why we can't connect with our ideal client. We have to connect with the right people and engage with the right people so that they come to us, which I think your messaging challenge is also all about, Melitta. So LinkedIn is so much easier to stand out in comparison to any of the other social media platforms, but you have to start, right? And I think that is probably the last thing that I would want to add. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. And I hear people say that as well. My audience isn't on LinkedIn. It's like, well, they are. And how many people do you need anyway? I think
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
people that are like solopreneurs, they have a service-based business, they can't work with like thousands of people every year anyway. So it doesn't, you, in some cases, you can just be on any platform. But I like yourself, I really like LinkedIn. I think the quality of conversation there is much better, the interaction. And I've had the same situation on Instagram where I was like, a heart? well, what am I supposed to say to that?
Exactly.
How do you
respond to a rocket emoji or whatever? Yeah.
yeah,
It's so hard.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't like Instagram personally, but we have anyone who does want to go on Instagram, we are having an Instagram expert on the show very, very soon, and someone to talk about video. So we're going to touch on all those points as well. But Josephine, thank you so much. And you do have a checklist of the framework that we talked about earlier. Is that right?
Yeah, so the checklist is, I call it the LinkedIn Mastery Checklist. So what it does is we go deeper into the profile optimization, because I think that is a little bit where people need to start to clean up their profile, to make sure that, people aren't afraid, or that you actually repel the right one, because we want to repel the wrong ones and attract the right ones. So the LinkedIn Mastery Checklist includes all the steps that you need to think of, and how to think of when you create your banner, for example. And then I also have listed the other 4 steps in the framework. So we are going to share the link to the mastery checklist so that people can download it and start, being seen on LinkedIn.
Yeah, brilliant. So we'll put the link up to that on the show notes page. Go to melittacampbell.com/podcast if you don't know where to find the show notes page, and you can search for Josephine and you'll find her episode. But Josephine, thank you so much. You've been so generous in all the value and information you shared today. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I really look forward to be sharing this episode too with everyone else. And I will listen into the video podcast too, because I think video is absolutely one thing that I can learn so much more about. So thank you so much, Melitta.
Brilliant. Thanks. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode and are now clearer and motivated to make LinkedIn work for you, to help take those steps to grow your business, grow your audience, grow your impact in a way that feels comfortable and authentic to you. And if you have enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you leave a review on iTunes or Spotify to help more people find the show. And of course, it'll be a wonderful celebration for the 250th anniversary as well, which is coming up next Wednesday. I am so excited. From Monday, you'll be able to access all the resources in one place at melittacampbell.com/250. And if you are on my email list, then you may have read my email about how excited I am and how I'm not very patient. And I may well launch that page a little bit early as well, but that's just between me and you. So I hope you will join us next week for a very special episode of the show next Wednesday, the live podcast masterclass next Wednesday afternoon, and the Success Walks playlist that you can download from Monday to help you explore a range of episodes from across the last few years on themes, so you can dive into whatever your focus is in your business right now. And I know there are so many episodes to choose from, and especially if you're new to the show, you may be feeling a little bit lost. Where do I start? Those playlists are really going to help you, because as I say, each group of 7 episodes is on a theme. Plus, there are some special bonus episodes and videos and masterclasses and all sorts in there for you to enjoy. So do go and grab your copy of that. It will be available from Monday officially, melittacampbell.com/250, but probably it'll be available before then too. So I hope you'll join us next week. Meantime, I've been your host, Melitta Campbell, business coach and value whisperer, and I look forward to seeing you then. Bye.